This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I am your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether you're tuned in on the 95 FM, Pulse95Radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, or even if we're streaming live on YouTube. Thank you so much for connecting today. Appreciate you guys. And hey, listen, I'm going to make it worth your while because we've got the Champions League. Whew. The final's over. Bayern Munich have won. We're going to break it down right here on the Halftime Show. Also, Dillian Whyte loses to Povetkin. I was speaking to his coach as well. They're really gutted. They were inches away from getting a victory there. We've also got, are we overtraining? Has lockdown affected our mentality, and what are we striving to achieve in health and fitness? And also going to give a special couple of shout-outs on the Instagram Live. Imrooney, Awesome, Mario, our guy Mario, Super Mario, Maria Almas, and everyone. Is the YouTube stream not working? I should think so, Maria. I'm going to check out right now. Flo Galindez as well. Who else? We've got KV Green, Isa, and YRB. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to make it worth your while, I promise, right after this.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm so happy that we are here together today. And I'll tell you one thing. I've got a lot of people jumping on the Champions League, but listen, you're going to have to wait till the second segment because I've got plenty of things lined up for you once we get into that. But firstly, one of our friends on the show, on the Halftime Show, Mr. Dave Caldwell, one of the best coaches in the world, has come on the show before. I was talking to him because his fighter, Dillian Whyte, was fighting against Povetkin. Now, boxing fans always tell me, Omar, you're so into boxing, you love your boxing, but you don't talk about it enough. Well, you know what? I'm going to talk about it now. And this is how it's going to be. Dillian Whyte was very, very close. For those that didn't watch it, it was about 2 a.m. UAE time. I struggled to stay up for that, but I did stay up for it. And I was watching the fight. Now, Dillian Whyte lost to Povetkin. And Dillian Whyte's someone that has, very gracefully learned along the way in his journey, in his boxing journey. They call him the body snatcher for a reason. And he's someone that has fought the best of the best and never ever shrugged away from it. And actually, instead of waiting for a championship fight, he thought he'd get active and work on it, and that's something that I really respect in him. I was speaking to his coach, David Caldwell, who was on the show recently, and I was asking him, how are you feeling? How is the experience? He said, it's brilliant, we're ready, we're good to go. Now, unfortunately, in boxing, especially in the heavyweight division, you know that it just takes one punch, especially when you get to that level, that could cost you. And I was watching that fight, and I watched it again, and I watched the highlights, and especially the different types of feints that were going in throughout the fight was interesting. But Dillian Whyte looked comfortable. He looked someone that would have definitely, won this fight. He knocked Povetkin down twice in one round, only to come out the round after. And it's a huge risk when you're fighting someone like Dillian Whyte, especially because of his right hand. Now, Povetkin slipped to his left, to the favored hand of Dillian Whyte, and shot the uppercut, while Dillian Whyte expected a hook and therefore covered the wrong angle, which then knocked him out. And, these things, especially when it comes to boxing, and I was speaking to Coach Ryan yesterday. He keeps calling it Pulse 95 instead of Pulse. So, Ryan, if you are listening, it's Pulse 95. He was telling me as well, it's a huge risk to take, especially at that angle. And people were criticizing Povetkin in the sense that, he's reached his 40s, he's a bit old now. However, that one punch was a brilliant shot. Very, very intricate in the way he landed that uppercut, especially with the couple of feints he had prior to that and being knocked down twice. But I guess that's what a champion is. So with that, I was speaking to, Dave Caldwell, and he was telling me that they've devastated at the camp now, but a rematch should be on the cards, and this year. So, hey, listen, we might not have to wait that long for a rematch because it was in his clause. Now, he did get one behind the ear and one in the chin for Whyte when he was facing Povetkin. It's very, very smart boxing until that lapse of concentration. And when listening to him after that, we did hear him say, you know what, I'm fit, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Let's go again. Let's go round two or rematch with Povetkin. And you know what? I do believe in Dillian Whyte's ability, and I also believe in his intelligence, which he doesn't always get credit for, especially being at Loughborough. Now, for those that don't know, Loughborough University is one of the, if not the best sports university in Europe. And when it comes down to investing in their athletes, they do that incredibly. And having been from the UK myself, it was always one we appreciated. It's outside of London, so it's all focus, all heads down, all mindset on the sport that you want to get into. Now, Dillian Whyte is involved in boxing and has gone out there and has trained there for a long time. And now he's incorporated the skills of David Caldwell. So I hope you get back on track, Dillian, and I hope we see you beat Povetkin in the rematch. But speaking about matches, coming up next, the Champions League final. Yes, you're all tuned in now and you're all asking about Neymar. That's coming up right after this.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm just catching up with all the comments on the Instagram live at Omar Al-Duri and Pulse 95 Radio. People are going mad over the Champions League, and rightfully so. What a final it was. What did you think of it? I know a lot of fans were saying that Bayern Munich were the favourites, and rightfully so, having come into this game 11 out of 11 games, 10 out of 10 games before the final. It was something that Bayern Munich were the favourites, but the question is, had they peaked too early? Now, having a look at this game, even though it was only 1-0, quite deceiving on the scoreline, I was very impressed with the quality of play on both sides. Having said that, there were a few things we picked up on because this game was matched out to be a crazy game, all scoring crazy numbers. However, there was mixed reviews on certain superstars from the game, and that would have been Neymar was definitely one person that, and I said this to my wife earlier, actually we were talking about it over breakfast this morning. She said to me she'd like to see how many kilometers he covered on the pitch, and it's a very, very good point because we don't often link superstars with hard work. But I have to say yesterday, despite people saying he was ineffective, the amount of ground he covered, especially on the press, when the ball went back to the goalkeeper, he knew that Manuel Neuer likes to play with the football and likes to be an outfield player as well, so he pressed him heavily. However, his other two counterparts in Di Maria and Mbappe failed to close down the press higher up in the pitch, which already started to get them tired. And as we saw, it was a game of two halves. The first half, PSG should have been a couple of goals up. Yes, there was a penalty that should have happened. Where was VAR yesterday? That's another story. When we saw the decisions, normally VAR would intervene, there would be decisions. Yesterday, it was almost like VAR were on holiday because I didn't see anything reviewed, or at least taking the time to review the situation. Now, Bayern played a very smart game to start off with. However, PSG, to take the courage to be able to play and have the personality and character to play through the lines was very impressive. However, I do have to take you back and say, since COVID hit and since the restart of football has started, Bayern Munich have had enough games under their belt to be able to bide themselves throughout the 90 minutes. PSG, especially in France, their league had ended, and apart from a cup final, they really were in cruise control. And it showed in the second half because they came out of the blocks in the first half and should have been up, especially with Neymar, Mbappe and Di Maria causing havoc amongst the back four. Now, we did mention that if Alphonso Davies was to get cautioned in that game, would he switch Di Maria and Mbappe to be able to try and cause problems defensively for Alphonso Davies rather than on the back foot? And that was interesting because once he was on a yellow card, Tuchel did take his time and switch the two. However, I could say that Mbappe was out of the game. Now, Bayern were unlucky not to get a penalty. Decision to play Coman was very successful, especially being that Coman is a PSG Academy graduate who had applied his trade out there in France and also been someone who has been on the fringes in and out of the team over the last couple of years. He got it spot on flick in playing him on the left side, which caused so much problems for the right back in having that. Mbappe had a chance to score. He wasn't really at the races. Some say he was still injured. Herrera was outstanding, and I'm surprised to see him get taken off. Now, as soon as the second half kicked off, you could tell Bayern almost had a pre-season. That's what I was talking about as soon as the Project Restart came back. Bayern had quite a few games to shake off the cobwebs, and they looked the much stronger side. PSG, especially with their league cancelled, you can tell they were a bit leggy. They weren't at the races. However, what I will say is that when we saw the game, it could have gone either way. Anyone that says that this would have been a dominating game, a 4 or a 5-0, was definitely mistaken, because PSG had missed their chances in the first half, only to see Bayern come out stronger as the half proceeded. Now, one person that deserves a lot of praise is Manuel Neuer. Now, we often talk about Ballon d'Ors and we often talk about the Ronaldos and Messis of this world, but something now, a little bit of a goalkeeper appreciation message here, where normally goalkeepers don't get the credit. Now, Manuel Neuer has not just come on the scene, he's been on the scene for a very long time, but the consistency and the manner in which he spreads his body, very similar to a handball, I hope Ronaldo's watching, very similar to a handball goalkeeper, the way they open up their body and especially bring the right knee down when it comes to closing down. And that's why he made the goal so much smaller and very, very difficult to beat, keeping a clean sheet. Surely deserved man of the match, along with Thiago Alcantara. Now, one of my favorite players in the world right now, who has been on the scene for a while as well, and has talked about going to Liverpool. Liverpool fans, if you're there, you're in for a treat, because he is a baller. Now, saying that, Thiago was outstanding. Also, an appreciation for the coach. We don't often give the coach the credit when it comes down to superstar teams. Flick was an assistant manager who's come on board, cleaned up the mess of Bayern Munich, managed huge egos, which is a huge part of coaching, and won a Champions League. He was assistant to Kovacic, and he has come on now and got that under his belt. What is next for Hans Flick, especially with the board of directors and the expectation from all those people? So there you have it, a quick roundup of how the game went. Shout out to my boy Ryan, Ruthless Ryan from RBO, and of course his other half, Abby. And that was the Champions League. But what did you make of the game? I see everyone giving Neymar a bit of stick. I see people saying that Di Maria was good or not, and Mbappe wasn't at the races. What did you think? And who's going to win it next year? Text us on 4215, Itasalat or do, or slide into the DMs at Omar Duri on Pulse 95 Radio. Coming up next, are we overtraining? And if so, is that due to the restart after COVID? Stay tuned for more on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95.
This is the halftime show with Omar Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the halftime show with Omar Duri, your host, covering everything sport, international, local. We still got people talking about the Champions League. Everyone's going crazy, even though we spoke about it in segment 2. My man Hannibal, please come into the room, ask me about Neymar, ask me about Messi. I've got Almas saying Kingsley Coleman said Alphonso Davies is faster than Mbappe. Maybe so, but then again, they are teammates. Qasim says Ronaldo is different. Peak Messi would have to change or adapt a new physical and mental approach to football when getting old. Very good. And actually, we are talking about, this is the fitness segment when it comes down to health. We are talking about training. Now, since COVID, a lot of things have come to the surface. Among those things that have come to the surface is training, and a lot of people have appreciated facilities and gyms and equipment a lot more, with people hiking up the prices of equipment. Now, saying that, because of that, people have now had this bug or this urge to get back in the gym. Bug's probably not the right word, but urge or get back in the gym. And since they're getting back into the gym, they're talking about, we need to train. We have to take advantage of this now. We never know if there will be, another lockdown, another, strike or whatever. So people are going in and training hard, doing all this kind of stuff. However, are we overtraining? And has lockdown affected our mentality? If there isn't a program or a plan or a coach or a practitioner that you trust, how do we know if we're not overdoing it when you don't really know how far you can push yourself and how far is safe to push yourself? And that's kind of the topic of the day. I'm talking about overtraining. What are the signs of overtraining, and how do we realize when we need to break? And a lot of the times momentum is key. Some people find it a lot more difficult to kind of get into a routine, and when they do, they're scared of falling off it. Now, one of the things we have to eliminate and eradicate from the situation is fear of losing out or fear of missing out for the youngsters. The idea here is to kind of have a plan in place, and I always talk about this on the show when it comes down to programming. Have something in place, plan out your week, weekly, or even bi-weekly, or even monthly. Put things together, look at what you want to achieve, whether it's aesthetics, whether it's performance, put that into check and reset that button. And that's exactly how everything has kind of fallen almost in overcharge since, slowly, gradually, respecting social distancing, we've returned back to facilities or gyms and started training. Now, in training, that has been the case for a lot of people who've messaged me or have sent me, DMs and asked me, I'm feeling sore, is this okay? Is this all right? Am I overdoing it? And often something with recovery is a huge thing, and that's something which leads to overtraining. The lack of recovery and the lack of having that discipline to be able to take a step back and then take 2 steps forward rather than trying to, work through it. One of the best coaches for us is Zahabi. He is, for some of you that don't know, he is George St. Pierre's coach out in Canada, one of the best in the business. And he was talking about something that I mentioned in my book as well, Reset, which was flow state training. And that was being able to train at 60-70% throughout the week rather than going 100% every time and risking injury, risking getting into that red zone. So that's the topic of the day. What do you guys think? Have you guys been overtraining? If so, have you seen any signs of it? 4215 Itasalat or slide into the DMs at Omar Al-Duri and let me know what's going on. Coming up next, we answer your questions, we speak about what's coming up this week, and we cover the topics we went over today. If you have anything, shoot them my way. I'll be right back after this.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
Salam, welcome back to the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international, and local. How are we doing today? We've recovered from yesterday, the Champions League final. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing. It's only a week and we're back into the game, and we've also got the UAE League happening, the Indian World Cup is happening, in cricket as well. We've got so many things on point right now in the world of sport. And you know what, for a while we had 3 months without it. A couple of questions coming in here on the Instagram Live. Let's have a look. In regards to overtraining, youth club coaches need to teach proper stretching and recovery. And if you remember, last week I had a very talented young footballer by the name of Almas who plays here out in the UAE and was actually brought up in Sharjah or born in Sharjah, and went to Denver and came back here now in the UAE, and now she's working and playing at the highest level she can. Hopefully we'll go higher and higher with her. So shout out to Almas and the family for tuning in. Recovery is a huge thing, and it's not just important for us to kind of educate the youth, but it's also important for us to be able to get them in the right mindset of how to slow things down to be able to go faster. It's really, really important, especially as we've all made the mistakes young to kind of, keep going and just, we can get away with it. So we'll eat whatever we want and we'll train as many times, play, the sport we love, a couple of times a day even, because we could. But what happens is it builds habits, and in building habits, that causes the body to react a certain way, restricting us to reach our full potential. But we don't know that because we're in it, and because we're kind of young at that point and thinking that, we're fine, we're indispensable. Then it kicks in later on as you get, imbalances and injuries and a lot of kind of complications. It kind of kicks in at that point. So yeah, Almas makes a very good point, and it's one of those things that with recovery, there's a lot of fine hacks you can have to implement in your lifestyle to be able to kind of prevent rather than worry about curing the case. And that's another thing I speak about on the show quite a bit. I speak about prevention over cure because it's kind of boring to do prevention exercises or strength exercises that are going to help you, that are more patient and not as cool for the gram or TikTok in these days. And by the way, Almas, I still haven't been coached by you how to use the TikTok. See, I even say the TikTok. You gotta let me know, what I need to do, because I got the director on my case and I haven't done that yet. So that's one of the cases I was talking about earlier regarding overtraining, and also maybe a lack of planning as well. I think that's something that we tend to kind of go with. Some people, by the way, react and respond a lot better to listening to their body, which is also okay as long as in the month or in the year you have, a goal that you can kind of achieve or try and aspire to get to. And I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the element of programming or planning, and also just being a better version of yourself without really looking on your right or your left. I did a cool podcast with Namir and Laith, actually, from Stay in Your Lane, and they were talking to me and asking me about the different types of athletes that I've worked with or coaches that I've worked with. And sometimes, you take a bit of everyone and you kind of add those flavors in a pot and you make it your own. And that's kind of the best way, rather than looking on your right or your left to be able to, worry about what everyone else is doing. And I think that's such a huge, skill to be able to have, to adapt. We spoke about some of the best coaches in the world adapting to other coaches' approaches who have come from different leagues, different backgrounds, different degrees, and different experiences. And that's something that, you can never have enough of, especially when it comes down to travel. We spoke about on the show as well, especially following COVID. A lot of people have kind of almost appreciated or valued, experiences more, like traveling, like being able to go to retreats or go to different camps and changing your environment. And that's another huge thing that we kind of look at when it comes down to styles and different approaches on principles of training. Very, very key. Almas says, I'm definitely still adjusting to this new climate, workspace, and people. Mum says hi and thanks. Of course, we love Mum, Angelica. She's awesome. We had her on the show as well. And I teased her a little bit because she's had soccer instead of football. But apart from that, she's awesome. And Almas, you are very lucky to have Mum and Dad, supporting you 100%. So shout out to you guys for that. It is something that, a lot of the times we neglect. And I say that wholeheartedly because we all do those mistakes. But then when it comes to coaches having experienced that, they're then able to pass that knowledge, especially if it's cost their careers. How many times do you hear people saying, I could have, I should have, I would have? That's why I tell my wife all the time, I tell Maria, seize the opportunity, get yourself ready. Preparation, when it meets opportunity, that is the road to success. And that's the reality of it. Now we have reached full time on the Halftime Show. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Remember, you can catch it every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4. You have some incredible guests on, and you can also catch the podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Anghami, or even if you prefer a visual, you got us on YouTube on Pulse 95 Radio. Hope you have an incredible day. I will see you on Wednesday, inshallah. Have a blessed day and take it easy.
This is Pulse 95.
Yeah.